All right, everybody, welcome. We're going to get started here. Very proud to welcome Beth Charpentier and Kyle Muth, both good friends of mine. Beth is coming live from Seattle, Washington, which is pretty cool. And I know Beth has been really all over the world and worked for and volunteered for a lot of interesting places and interesting companies. So really looking forward to hearing from Beth about her travels and her journey and catching up on that. I know some of it, but I really want to hear it all again. And I think it'll be really interesting for people to hear about your journey and some of the things that are possible out there that are a little non-traditional. We also have Kyle Muth, who has managed to stay a little more local to Ossining and is an entrepreneur, owns his own business. And he's going to tell you a little bit more about what he does and how he got into his career as well. So we're going to start with Kyle and kind of hopefully, Kyle, take us a little bit like from your high school days, maybe like anything you remember from high school all the way through college and how you landed in your career and just a brief what you do. And then we'll kick it over to Beth. So here is Kyle Muth. Hi, Kyle.
Hey, thanks for having me, Zach. Good to see you. Good to see Mr. Jaffis as well. Both Yonkler wasn't a teacher of mine, but Mr. Jaffis was back in the day got me actually a little bit interested into the finance world that I currently sit. Graduated in 2004 from Ossining. Went to Bentley University up in Waltham, Massachusetts, and for undergrad, and was a finance and accounting major. So that I kind of went into that world or wanted to go into that world pretty quickly. Graduated in 2008, and that was right during the financial crash, and basically took the first job in finance that I could actually get. So, and that was a back office accounting job for a mutual fund. That turned into more of a, for the company, they basically outsourced that job pretty quickly because they were losing so much money. So had to kind of pivot and went back to school at night for my MBA at Iona, and got my accounting certificate. Basically, I was able to take the CPA exams, and then passed all of those, and then went to Ernst & Young for 4 years to do bank advisory, basically telling banks who they can lend to, who they can't lend to, a lot to do with Dodd-Frank and the new regulations that came out of the crisis. I didn't really enjoy the corporate world too much. Basically helping banks save money and also comply with regulations. I wanted to more help clients or small businesses that maybe they weren't helping because they were too risky, or they're great companies, but they just didn't fit the algorithm that the banks were now had to comply with. So from there, always wanted to have that entrepreneurial spirit. In high school, I enjoyed Mr. Jaffs' classes, always talk about personal finance, but then also Miss Kelleher had a few business classes that were really great as well, and kind of got that entrepreneurial spirit going. Always wanted to do something, helping communities grow. So now I've owned my own business for 4 years, Youth Capital. We basically source money for small businesses and then also lend money to real estate investors. So, and during the pandemic, my services were needed more and more because banks kind of turned off the faucet for money for small businesses. I was able to, along with the government programs, was able to get 130 of the Paycheck Protection Program loans to small businesses and independent contractors and everything like that. So that's kind of where I'm sitting now, but I can later, I'll go into some interesting type of stuff that I do daily and kind of what my life is right now.
Thanks so much, Kyle. I think it was interesting to hear you say that you kind of got to where you are now based on your experience in the corporate world. And even though you didn't enjoy it, you didn't like it, it pushed you into this direction, right, to help those that couldn't be helped by the banks. And it's a really good transition to Beth, because I know Beth has spent, a lot of her time, since we left each other's company as high school friends, right, to be giving back, right, and she's traveled the world, and so that's interesting. That's one thing you two, it seems, have in common, that you both found your way to like helping. So it's a good transition, and we'll kick it to my good friend Beth, and hopefully she'll share a little bit of her insights into where she's been, what she's done. I know there's a lot of stuff, so let's get to it.
Cool. Thank you so much. I'm going to share some slides. I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly. Can you see it? Yeah? All right, great.
Yeah,
so, what was that?
We got you. You're good.
Okay, cool. I'm the Associate Officer of Strategy, Planning, and Management at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on the Emergency Response Team. So I've got 3 objectives today. I'm going to tell you about working at the Gates Foundation. I'm going to tell you about all the stuff I did leading up to there. And then I'm going to try to embarrass Mr. Yonkler as much as possible with a whole bunch of pictures. So this is me celebrating my birthday at Ossining High School, visiting him. And then this is how long we've been friends, since before digital cameras existed. So that's fun. So I work at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and pretty much what we do is we try to solve some of the biggest world problems. And we do that by partnering with some of the smartest people and the hardest working and people in the really interesting places that can get us answers to all of these questions. So the questions that we have are, how do we want the world to be different? How do we what do we know or not know about how to make that change? What have people tried in the past? What ideas might work that haven't been tried yet? And we just use Bill and Melinda Gates' money to hand that out to different partners like universities, governments, nonprofits, and businesses to help get the answers to those questions to get us that much closer to solving these problems. So we work mostly in global health, but also have a program that focuses on education in the United States. We have about 1,600 employees all over the world, but most of them are in Seattle, Washington, and we give away about $5 billion a year. There are 37 different program teams. My team is the emergency response team. So we do 4 things. We respond to emergencies. If there's a hurricane, a natural disaster, or if there's a war broken out where people have to flee really quickly, we can get hundreds of thousands of dollars to organizations within 48 hours. It's a really special thing within the humanitarian sector. But that's short term. And we also really are thinking about long term, bringing big changes to the humanitarian system. So one of the things we do is we partner with governments to help them prepare for emergencies. And so what that means is knowing exactly when something happens, like a natural disaster or a pandemic, they know exactly who's going to do what and how different systems are going to have to shift. So, okay, number 3, we bring innovation to the humanitarian settings. So I know this picture is really hard to see, but we try to look at how can we make life in refugee camps a little better, and how can we keep people healthier and happier. So for example, this is a toilet in a refugee camp. They get really gross really fast, smells really bad, lots of flies. And so we work with engineering groups and production teams and all sorts of different partners to, for example, come up with a better toilet. So this one lasts 10 years, no smell, no flies, and it actually produces cooking gas that families can use. And therefore, women who usually have to go out and collect firewood don't have to do that anymore, and it keeps them safer and gives them more time in their day also. So we try to look for those little places where we can, put money towards trying out new things and see if that can make a lasting change. And then also a really cool thing that we're able to do is to bring people together to talk about the humanitarian system what are the problems, what are the challenges, and where really get that input for where we can be making more of a difference all together. So we will bring donors and small organizations and large organizations and businesses all together and have these really important conversations. Okay, so my role as a strategy officer is I track all of the progress of our work. I try to improve processes. I run all types of meetings, some for talking, some for learning, some for sharing. I manage all of our finances for the team. We have about $15 million that we give away to different partners trying to answer these questions every year, and I kind of track how much we've given and how much we have left to give. And I keep our team on track with all sorts of different methods. And my favorite part of it is just asking a ton of questions. I get paid for that. It's my favorite. So some of the questions that I'll ask are, what are we learning from these grants? Does our plan for how we're going to solve these problems or improve on these issues, does it still make sense now that we've learned more things, or do we need to make some adjustments? What do we need to learn next? Who else do we need to learn from? And then after we've done all this learning, how do we make sure that it gets to that next step? We are a learning organization, but we're not the ones who are going to change the world ourselves. We're going to learn a whole bunch of stuff, and then we're going to give the learnings to these much larger organizations that can actually make those changes happen around the world, like the World Health Organization or different UN agencies or different governments. So that's one of the other questions we ask. So,
Beth, I'm going to pause you for 1 second. I want to bring Kyle in here for a moment. You mentioned that your department is in charge of $15 million per year. Is that right?
My little team of 3 people. Yeah, we make $15 million of grants each year.
Gotcha. And so, Kyle, I want to kick it to you just for a second. And Beth, keep your presentation up because I want to hear all about what you've done getting to there. But Kyle, what's the scope of the money that you give out, to different organizations and companies that you work with? Are you in like a similar financial range? Just curious about that.
Yeah, it's funny. It can range anywhere from a $20,000 line of credit for a small pharmacy down the street to a $10 million bridge loan for a development project in California. It ranges, and it's all about unique and alternative growth capital. So it's not the businesses are looking to do something that they haven't been able to do yet, and this money will allow them either to hire more employees, give them working capital to be able to produce whatever products they're producing at a much larger scale, because their product is starting to get some traction in a market. A lot of things like that, because it's more about getting capital to the people that don't have the deep pockets yet, but they have a great plan, vision, and potentially a great product that they want to release on the market.
Awesome, thank you so much. So it seems like there's a lot of common theme between Beth and Kyle. As both, Kyle for himself, but Beth for Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that you're both giving, lots of money to either organizations or companies or even to the people, right? That need this money to take the next steps in whatever it is they're doing. So that's interesting. And so let's go back to Beth. I see you have Ossining High School up, and you're going to take us a little bit and talk to us about how everything you've done since Ossining High School has led you to, kind of giving back, I guess. Go ahead.
Thanks. So Ossining High School, I was a huge fan of math and science, and also languages. I worked at the after-school program in the church right next door, and I was in a program called Walkabout, which allowed me to volunteer at work in Pound Ridge Reservation, as well as started working at a venue in New York City called the Lion's Den. So this picture over here is Mr. Yonkler joining me for my first ever concert that I put together, which was pretty exciting. So after that, went to University of Wisconsin. I stayed very involved with music. I started working for a handful of bands, putting together concerts and festivals and tours. I also was able to study abroad in Australia, where I got to meet people from just all over the world and became really interested in learning more about people all over the world. So I had a radio show, 2 radio shows, one about punk rock music and one about the world and bringing people from other countries or who lived in other countries to talk about their experiences there, just to learn more about it. And I was a psychology major and a business minor, because I just really liked asking questions. So after this, jumped over to Thailand and was there for a handful of years. I started volunteering with elephants, and I became really into elephants. At the same time, I started learning about refugees from Burma. So a lot of the guys who took care of the elephants were refugees from Burma, and they shared a whole bunch about their experience having to flee, not being safe there, coming into Thailand, and explaining all of this stuff to me in very broken English with a lot of patience on both sides to figure it out. I decided I wanted to stay and became an English teacher in Thailand, and I also continued to learn more about Burma. There was an uprising. I ended up meeting a bunch of monks. I also, in this time, became really interested in public health through a project I did in Cambodia, where we improved the water in a community by capturing the rain that was coming down, and then also explaining, working with the schools so that kids could have more access to healthy water, to clean water. Okay. After that, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was really interested in refugees. I was really interested in public health and didn't know what to do. Luckily, I found a job at the Thai-Burma border working in public health for displaced populations due to conflict at the border. So I'm not going to get into the details, but I'm just going to say it was an amazing experience, and I learned so much, and it was really hard, but it convinced me to go back to school and get a master's of public health. And so I went to Columbia and did my master's of public health there. While I was there, I also had the opportunity to work with International Rescue Committee at the Ethiopia-Sudan border. You'll see a lot more whiteboards. They're my favorite. And we did research to understand what was working and not working about their community health program, and made sure to stop by for Mr. Yonkler's wedding. And then after this, really wasn't sure what to do again, but luckily I was offered a job at my school. So I got to stay on as a researcher, which brought me back to refugee camps in Rwanda and Uganda for a little over a year. So this was really exciting, but I decided I wanted to try to be normal and just set up a normal life, and thought Seattle might be a good place to do that. That ended up not happening because I was asked if I wanted to go to Liberia to work on the Ebola response. And I said, yes, definitely, because I had no job actually set up in Seattle yet. So I went over to Liberia, more whiteboards, and worked with the government there to figure out how to stop Ebola. And I have to say, it was not easy, but we succeeded. And I worked with amazing people and learned a ton again. So after this, I actually went to Seattle and actually followed through on some other things I wanted to do in life. I wanted to become a mother, so I became a foster parent to my awesome daughter, May. I got a really cool job at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, have an awesome boyfriend now, and always going back to New York to hang out with Mr. Yonkler whenever possible. So that is my deal. I think I was super into music, teaching, refugees, public health. Now I'm in philanthropy, and I think the common threads through there is loving whiteboards, calendars, post-its, research, systems, science, people, challenges, solutions, and at the end of the day, working with people to make their voices heard, get their needs met, and make the world a little better. Okay, all done.
Wow. Wow, Beth.
Beth, can I just say the world needs more people like you?
Thanks. It's a bunch of luck and a little effort, and I've been really fortunate.
You are incredible. Kyle, you're okay.
Yes.
And it's kind of been a theme, Beth. I know you haven't been in these sessions this week, but it's kind of been a theme and it relates to what Kyle we were talking about earlier, but that you have to put yourself out there and you have to try things. And it seems like for you especially, one thing kind of led to another, which led to another, and you went to all these wonderful places and did this awesome work. It's so awesome to hear it and to see you lay it all out like that. It's tremendous. It's dramatic. It's a lot. And I can't believe that you squeezed all that in and you're still a young person. It makes me feel lazy and not like a good person, but seriously, I'm in awe of everything that you've done. It's an awesome story. I think it hopefully will open some eyes here. And before we go back to Kyle, do you have any recommendation or how would students, where would they start? If a student felt like they were inspired by what you did and some of the things you did, where do you even begin to say, I want to give back and to people that are less fortunate than me? Where do you even start with that? What's your help for them?
I would say look in your own community and see what organizations are currently there and are helping people. There's no shortage of amazing nonprofits that are doing incredible work, and a lot of them are often looking for volunteers. If you're interested in refugees specifically, please reach out to me. I'm happy to share. There's a lot of organizations in New York City that focus on helping refugees have a smooth transition to life in the United States. And I think just the more stories you hear from people, you'll feel what piques your interest and what direction to go next. I really had no clue any of this was going to happen, so I just kind of was super curious, super open, and it always I stumbled on the next step. Yeah.
Awesome. Beth, thank you so much for sharing that. And it sounds like kind of like you said, every step you took kind of led to another. And it sounds like, Kyle, what we were talking about earlier. So we're going to toss it to Kyle a little bit but there is a question in the chat. Do either of you speak any other languages? Beth, maybe for you, I know you've been to a lot of places. Did you pick up on any Thai? I think you did. We went to a Thai restaurant one time and you were talking to the owner a little bit. I remember that. So maybe you want to share about that, and then we'll go transition back to Kyle.
I studied French in middle school and high school and college a little bit. I speak Thai, or I used to. I'm not sure if I can anymore. So Thai was the big one. I lived there for about 5 years, and I speak a little bit of Burmese from working with my colleagues. And also my daughter, she's from Burma, so we try to speak Burmese together sometimes.
Awesome.
But she speaks English way better than I'm ever going to speak Burmese, so it doesn't really happen that much.
Well, thank you so much, Beth. All right, so Kyle, we talked a little bit earlier. You mentioned how you went into corporate and that kind of led you to leave corporate into what you do now. So can you share? I know you have a little presentation about what you currently do. So maybe share a little bit about what you currently do, and then kind of maybe even talk about what got you there and why you like what you're doing now, if you do, better than what you did in the past.
Yeah, sure. So going into the corporate lifestyle, it's a lot of layers. So you enter as an associate, but then you have people one step above you, and then you have managers, and then you have senior managers, then you have directors, then you have partners. So it's kind of like a ladder that if you want to be successful in, you have to climb the ladder and eventually kind of oversee other people. But then there's always in the weeds. There's always different things that go on that kind of either are very beneficial, or they just kind of rub you the wrong way. So and I was running into a lot of where I wanted to do things, maybe work differently rather than what the manager wanted me to work as, staying extra late even after I've completed my tasks and kind of doing everything that I was asked to do. you'll see that you need to buy into any position that you're in, because and you have to take it as your own company, or you're kind of going to fail in a sense, because you're not into it the way that other people may be into it. So that just led me on a path towards doing something for myself. Always wanted to help people. Now I sit on two non-for-profit boards locally here. The White Plains Youth Bureau, they help over 2,000 kids every day with programs, after-school programs, in-school programs. They have a flight simulator for people that want to maybe become pilots. It's really great. And then also on the other side of the spectrum, Center for Aging in Place. So there's aging in place organizations all through Westchester that help senior citizens live in their homes and not in like retirement homes. So they're able to stay in their homes longer. They provide them services like delivering food or delivering packages, or driving them to the doctors. There's a lot or creating social events for senior citizens at libraries, everything like that. So we're just there to kind of support all those organizations under this like CAP umbrella. So but for what I do now, let me pull something up. So this is like a presentation that I would present at user entire screen.
So Kyle, as you pull it up, do you find your clients, or do your clients find you? Like, and was that an issue like when you're first starting out your own business? I know sometimes the hesitation is like, where am I going to get my clients from? Like, am I going to be successful? So as you pull up your presentation, maybe you can share a little bit about how that started out for you. Was it slow, and how do you get your clients?
Yeah, so coming from the corporate world where you're like, can you see the presentation or?
Not yet. You have to click the present now button in the bottom right.
Yep.
And then you can hit your entire screen. That's the easiest way to do it.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, now we got you. Yep, you're in.
Yeah, so coming from like an analyst position or in the corporate world, you're not really a salesperson. So that has been the hardest part for me in kind of becoming a salesman, or but for the most part, it was just kind of getting out there. You have to network. So for me, every week I have 3 to 5 networking events that I attend regularly, whether that's a breakfast, a lunch, after work, and you're trying to create relationships with sources of influence. So like CPAs, lawyers, people that have business clients that are in tune with what the business needs. So this is like a presentation I would present to like a networking group or CPAs or anyone to kind of just show examples of what I do. I've always leaned on education when I didn't realize what I wanted to do in my next steps. So like when I started out in 2008 in back office accounting, knew that job wasn't going to be going anywhere fast. So was able to have the company pay for half of my MBA at night at Iona. So I leaned on that. That allowed me to take the CPAs. So I passed all those. And then I wanted to maybe transition into more of like a stock market type of role. So I got my CFA as well. So, and funny enough, a lot of that stuff, it's more just like a security blanket. So I actually do some freelance accounting now, and that's just a way to kind of keep me sharp with accounting and everything like that. But so what do banks and alternative lenders look at? Personal credit, cash flow, assets. So that I kind of analyze everything that a client needs, wants, but then also what they have to kind of secure an asset. Here's an example, like a PPE like wipes importer from China was looking for a $2 to $5 million line of credit. They needed the money to kind of get the orders shipped from China to Target. They were selling to Target, and yeah, got them a term sheet for like $3 million based off of the purchase orders from Target. What else? Real estate, like a fix and flip. So like your HGTV type of product, those type of investors would use something like this. They purchase a home for $100,000. They need to fix it up for $50,000. They think the property will be worth $250,000. And then, yeah, so we kind of analyze all this. This is what you can kind of get from it. They wanted to do it, put it into a rental property, so then refinance out of that. Yeah, and then these are kind of the characteristics of the companies that I would potentially help, or what they want to accomplish. Yeah, and then on the real estate side of things, but yeah, that's pretty much kind of what I do. I just kind of meet people, see what they need, and then connect them to capital. So I'm kind of like a what do you call it? A matchmaker in a sense, but for money. So that's kind of what I do. And if there's any questions or anything, happy to kind of take some.
Thanks so much, Kyle, for sharing that. And yes, definitely, if anyone has any questions for Kyle or Beth, the chat box is a great way to do it, and we'll certainly get them to answer it. While we wait for any of those, I'm wondering, are there any skills that we got a lot of high school students listening, and I know sometimes it feels like I just go from math class to English class to social studies, right? And everything kind of is in isolation, but when you get a career, right, you're usually kind of combining a lot of different, subject areas in terms of the skills that you need. Is there a particular skill or a top couple skills that you use like on a daily basis or frequently, that you could look back and say, actually I started to be able to do this well or hone this skill in high school or in college? Could you speak to that a little bit? Is there stuff that you learned how to do in high school that you now use in your respective careers? And maybe we'll start with Beth and then come back to Kyle on that.
I think, one of the biggest things that has impacted all of the things that I've done is kind of just time management. And I think even in high school, you have so many things going on, and you have to figure out, how am I going to get them all done, and what's a priority, and how do I make sure that I have time to hang out with my friends, and all of those things. And I think, that was in addition to all of the subject matters, but just that, like, figuring out how to handle life. I don't know. That's not a very concrete answer, but I think like all of the to-do lists that I wrote down in high school helped me get through high school, definitely, and prepared me to be successful going down, down the line. But also the intersections between like science and English might feel really different, but you need, if you're trying to communicate science, you need the English part. So like they all really do come together, even though they might feel separate in high school.
Thanks for that, Beth. And I assume similar for you, Kyle, right? Math and English, I would assume. Okay.
Yeah, math, English. I think it comes down to processing information. So you're, for the most part, you're probably going to forget most of the stuff that Mr. Yonkler's teaching you. It's just a fact. But the way you process that information, that you're able to kind of communicate it, pass his tests, do his projects, that's the important stuff that will stick with you, how to process that information and then communicate it, or put it into like not regurgitate, but to put that into your own voice, whether that's on paper or a presentation. And those are key. And then also just relationship building. So you might not think like hanging out with your friends and kind of relating on different topics or anything like that is anything special, but people want to do business with people they like. So if you can relate to someone at a personal level, it's a lot easier to gain their trust, gain their business, and it allows you to kind of, because the products out there, they don't, the products aren't differentiating themselves. It's the person that they want to do business with. So it's like, all right, you want someone to paint your house. You're probably going to go with the guy that you trust or the woman that you trust. And maybe their quote's higher than the next person's, but that you trust that they'll do a good job, or that you like what they're telling you. So that's kind of the processing of information and relationship building, I think, are the two things in high school that will stick with you.
Interesting. Yeah, we were talking earlier in one of the sessions earlier today about what's changed, right, from when we were students, right, at the high school. And so, you know, one of the things that I said is in the past, right, we were asked, like, we were looking at our teachers as the people that gave us information. And now it's more, the information's all out there. You just have to find it. And that goes to the processing that you're talking about, Kyle, right? Being able to find what you need. Beth, there's a question for you in the chat box from Mr. Kuroga. You traveled all over the world. What motivates you to go and explore those different cultures? And that might be where we ended here today. But go ahead, Beth. What do you think? 30 seconds there.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's really like like a ball of twine. I ended up in Thailand not because I was specifically interested in Thailand, but for a bunch of other reasons. And I think being there, it opened my mind to how differently different cultures and different people see the world and act in the world and do things. So once I saw that, my mind just kind of was totally blown. So I spent a lot of years in Asia, but then after that realized I don't know anything about Africa. So, you know, was able to get a position there and got to meet new people there. So everything, I think, just it just keeps on going. You say, wow, there's so much to learn, and it's so exciting that any opportunity to learn more was just, yeah, definitely, I'll take it. So I think it's curiosity.
Thank you. Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome to hear from both of you. Thank you so much for your time. Beth, thank you for sharing your journey. And Kyle, thank you for sharing the intricacies of what you do. And it was interesting to hear the similarities in terms of, you know, the path that you took to get to where you are and learning from your experiences. So I think that's something all of our students hopefully picked up on. And, you know, you're both my good friends, and I appreciate you doing this. And hopefully it was fun for you. It was fun for me to catch up, and hopefully it was informative for our students. So once again, thank you mucho.